Hello friends, Phil Lyons here with another video for my YouTube channel. Most of my channel is devoted to pottery demonstrations, both wheel and hand building processes. This one is different. In April of 2021, I paid a visit to my old friend Bruce Breckenridge at his studio in Madison, Wisconsin to interview him about his life and art. Bruce taught ceramics at the UW-Madison for almost 4 decades. In 1977, my freshman year at the UW, Bruce was my ceramics professor. Then, 25 years later, he was on my MFA committee. He's been a great friend and a wonderful resource for ceramic artists like myself for many years. This 85-minute conversation with Bruce is divided into 2 parts. In part 1, Bruce reflects on his formative years growing up in Michigan, Chicago, and on the East Coast. In part 2, Bruce explores his professional life and his time in the art department at the UW-Madison. Bruce passed away in January at the age of 92. My heart goes out to his wife Suzanne and his kids Sarah and Ethan. Bruce was making art right up until the end. Quite impressive. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I plan on posting more conversations with artists in the months to come. If you like watching clay demos, check out some of my other videos as well. Thanks for watching. And now, my conversation with Bruce Breckenridge.
I left home when I was young just to try to make my way.
Bruce.
Hey.
What's up? How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Good to see you.
You're like, how old are you now? Are you 90 yet?
91.
91.
91, yeah. Here, I'll turn this off.
Damn, you're still making work. You're 91. I'm impressed. I hope I can hang in there that long.
Yeah, well, I've only probably, I've got it, the pulmonary doctor said I don't have it, but I don't know what I have then, but I've got COPD, and I don't have any, I can, walk up and down the stairs, and then it's like.
The stamina, the breathing. Did you used to smoke?
Yeah, but very short time. I think it was primarily our
clay dust.
perfect
and all
thing,
that.
clay dust.
Yeah, silica and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah.
You know, I asked, before I took that job at West High, I asked Don, I said, how are your lungs?
Oh, yeah.
And he said, I was checked out just like a couple of years ago and I'm all good. But he was pretty reckless.
Well,
he didn't wear masks
when we
he
did
should have.
that early on, we were so fucking dumb. It's just like, one of the things was we were making clay, of course, in the brand new Park Street building there,
Right, Humanities, right. And was there even events?
And so we were, and they had this overhead exhaust system working there, and we did that for maybe 2-3 years, and an electrician came by and said, that motor's wired backwards, it's not doing anything for you. So we were there 3 years without doing anything. And eventually I saw this silk screen thing, and the guy had set up, he had his screen here, then he had these 2 exhaust things, and so he put stuff here and it went zap like that.
Like a downdraft stove.
He's working without a mask because it was so easy, zap. So
all oil-based stuff.
So I had the shop, the university make a thing. It came around the back of the.
You had like one of those big round solder mixer or whatever.
And it went outside, heavy duty thing there. We could dump a bag of clay in there and it went. And so, but that was way late in
After, right, yeah, right.
Wrights had already retired.
Yeah. So anyway, so what's your secret to longevity? You got your lungs aren't the best, but you're hanging in there, you know.
I have no idea because my dad died when he was 39. My mother died when she was 80. My older brother died when he was 82, I think it was. My oldest brother died when he was 52. So and that family does not have a whole, except for one. My immediate brother, Jack, who taught at ASU, and he didn't teach. He didn't teach ceramics. He taught art history. So
really,
yeah. So
do you? Your wife's a wonderful cook. All that stuff. Do you eat healthy?
Yeah.
Do you still eat red meat?
Not a lot. Not a lot. We can buy a piece of meat that some people will buy for each person.
Right.
And we buy that, and then you eat a little bit off of that, and then
right.
there's still more.
Sometimes it's just
you
need a little bit just to flavor the food. Just one piece of bacon in my soup, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Last night, no meat.
Yeah.
It was raviolis with squash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Nice. Well, good.
Yeah. So other than that, I have no idea what this thing. And
you're lucky. How old were you when you had your heart attack and your wife rescued
you
in your driveway? You have a second chance on life here.
Yeah. 2004.
So that was 17 years ago.
Yeah.
So you were 74 then, or whatever. So. Okay. You were still teaching. You were on my committee then.
Oh yeah, sure.
You were on my MFA committee.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
So tell me about, where did you grow up, and how did you catch the fire for art and ceramics?
Well, I'll tell you. I
actually
have a moment where there's a thing, a moment. My grandmother and grandfather had a cottage in Saugatuck, Michigan. And Saugatuck, Michigan is a big summer art colony.
Okay.
Oxbow is there, and that used to be a kind of standalone thing, but after a bunch of deaths, it ended up with, it's sort of one of the summer programs for the Art Institute in Chicago. Yeah,
because it was just around the lake a little bit, and
not bad, So yeah.
I mean, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Saugatuck.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
We went there when I was probably third grade, I guess. Third grade.
Right.
Yeah. And then, and I was there on and off. What I did in high school when I have this, I'll tell you about this other. When I knew I wanted to get art, Saugatuck would have, on one year you'd teach physics, and another year you'd teach chemistry, Mm-hmm. So it would be like, that tells you how small things were,
schools, right.
I mean, at one point we had 6 boys out for basketball.
Hopefully nobody gets injured.
Yeah, don't fall out.
Right.
But so I attached myself to a family, and he owned the second largest commercial art firm in the country. He was a divorced father of one of my friends we grew up with, and married another family and everything. They lived in Oak Park, and so I went to Oak Park High on my sophomore year, and then Madison Avenue came about, and they had to move the business from Chicago's interesting thing with it. I tell you about some other things that were about Chicago, but Chicago had all the mail order houses there. They started with Sears and,
Roebuck,
and Montgomery Ward, Alden's, CMO, some other kinds, like that. They were big. You got the big catalog, So
right, and probably centrally located in the United
yeah,
States.
and so yeah,
they
so
could ship stuff out.
So then when Madison Avenue came about, they had to move to New York. So we moved. The next year we moved from Oak Park to Stamford, Connecticut, and they had the business in New York, and so I would work for them on the weekends down. But I went to Stamford, Connecticut High School then. So, and each one of those whole things was I could take art.
Right.
So anyway, what happened was, so I knew about going up. I knew about Oxbow. But in the summertime, we used to work for there was this giant ballroom, and it was giant. I mean, it was really big. And in the old days, all the bands that were coming, would come from Chicago,
Swing, big bands,
and they'd be going to Detroit or someplace like that. They'd come to Saugatuck and they'd play in the big pavilion also. Duke Ellington and even
right. Glenn Miller, all that.
Yeah. Real, serious sort of things. Anyhow, that had changed when I grew up. But anyway, in summertime we worked there. Then these people bought the place, and somebody had a bright idea. We got this giant ballroom. Let's do skating indoor skating in the spring and the fall.
Uh-huh.
So we did all that, and so then I was a skate boy. I put on. You could rent skates, and you just put them on your shoes. Then we put them on the
little
shoes.
clamps on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was one fall, early fall. And these two little kind of scruffy guys were down there doing something. I skated along, and I said, "What are you guys doing?" And they said, "We're drawing." I said, "Well, who are you?" And they said, "We're artists." That's a career? Somebody could tell you that art's a career, and you are an artist. Boy, that hit me big time.
What was they drawing?
I was interested, of course, but there wasn't anything going on at that point. So
that was your aha moment.
That was interesting, yeah. So when my first wife and I were living in Europe, and I went to the American Academy in Rome, and one of the guys, Zubel Kachadorian, was one of the fellowship people at the American Academy in Rome. And then we went and saw him, and I said, we just were so nice to. So about 10 years later, I went to, I was divorced and living in New York City at that point. And I went to a party at, in the kitchen, some people were sitting down, and I sat down and started talking with them. And one of the guys was the other guy. Right. And so I said, you're partially responsible for what I do. He said,
So he was drawing at the roller rink.
Stan Twatowitz is his name. And we finally got back to that thing. I said, "You were in the roller rink in Saugatuck in the early fall." Oh my God, that's a long time ago. Yeah, that was a long time ago. But anyway, that was interesting that at that point on, I said, "Okay, I'm going to be an artist then." And that's how, you sometimes you do, you just sort of, when you finally decide, oh, well, I'm going to do something, you know, and I'm
Right.
pretty good at this, or, you know, I can do or something, you know. But this one was a early on decision.
So you ended up at Cranbrook, but where did you do undergraduate? You were...
I started at Western Michigan. I actually started at Michigan State, but I never registered there because Michigan State, in 1948, I went up to Michigan State with a bunch of 5 other guys, I think, who were veterans. And they were living high off the hog. They had the Second World War GI Bill of Rights, you know, which was, boy, I mean, you want a set of watercolors? Oh, yeah, go, yeah. We'll set that up, you know. So you want this, you know, you want a book of what? It's a $60 book. Oh, that's good. Yeah, you know. So
That's good.
yeah. You know, it's great. I mean, you know, it was responsible for creating the middle class. You know, I mean, it really was. You know, so. So I went there. Oh, and
So you're in East Lansing, but you'd never really registered. You were just...
no, there was the year before. There were 5,000 students, and there were 15,000, and they didn't have any idea what to do with us. We were in the Jennison Fieldhouse, taking tests to cop out of a whole bunch of classes because they didn't.
Right.
They
didn't want to have to
You didn't want to
staff
teach
them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I just realized after about 5 weeks of this whole thing, I said, "Fuck, I'm not going to make it here." And then, of course, these guys were living high off the hog because they had the GI Bill. So, and I'm living with them. So, you know, so it's like, and I'm looking around for a job at that point because I didn't been in the service at all. You know,
the
so
means. Yep.
yeah. So.
So you went back to Western Michigan?
I went down to Western Michigan because my older brother had gone there, and he was really good friends with in those days they had the Dean of Men and Dean of Women's and stuff like that. And so I made an appointment and so went and saw the Dean of Men, and it was nice to see me and all that sort of thing, and about my brother George and the whole business. And I said, you know, I'm supposedly there, but I think I need to come here. And he said, wow, this is highly
Unorthodox, but...
Yeah, but all right. So then I got in classes, and then eventually I did that. So at the end of my freshman year, I went to the summer school at Saugatuck at the Oxbow. And so that sort of got me going, and then I noticed all these scholarship students there that were just really knew everything, you know. So I said, "Where are you guys from?" And to a person they said, Milwaukee State Teachers College. And Milwaukee State Teachers College was one of those interesting state colleges that would become Whitewater and all of those guys, you know. So.
So that became UW-Milwaukee?
It became UW-Milwaukee eventually.
So the state system of UW, right, okay.
Yes.
So was it right on that north side of Milwaukee? Was it the same area?
Same place, same building,
buildings?
that original building on Downer was it, you know.
Right.
Because there were only 2,000 students, I think it was,
Wow.
when I was there, you know. But it was really interesting. It had been a normal school, of course, you know, and then it had grown up from the normal school to a state teachers college, and it became a 4-year institution. But in the process, they absorbed an art school, and the art school in the process absorbed them. So you want to get a teaching? There's only one degree, you know, teaching. You can't get any other kind of degree there. See, if you're doing geography, you're teaching geography. If you're doing, you know, math, you're doing math. You're teaching math. That's the whole idea. We were all going to go out and be high school art teachers or whatever, you know. So in the process, the art school absorbed the school, so that if you were if you were taking your geography thing, you had to take a whole bunch of art courses because they had at that point, we had about maybe 8 people teaching art. They had 21 people teaching art.
So all those
For
geography
2,000 students.
all the geography majors were very cultured.
They were quite cultured. And some of them knew how to draw really
They
well.
could draw
yeah.
maps.
Yeah. So I went back to Western Michigan and in my sophomore year and with the catalog from Milwaukee State Teachers College, trying to make sure that I could get things that would
Transfer.
So yeah, so I transferred here my junior year, obviously. So I did my junior and senior year at Milwaukee State Teachers College. I always said I graduated from Milwaukee State Teachers College, and then I looked at my diploma and I realized in the last year they changed all the things to Wisconsin State College, Milwaukee, Wisconsin State College, Whitewater. It was.
So you were in the midst of the transition.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I didn't graduate from.
So were you, in terms of your work then, were you mostly drawing and
Drawing and painting.
painting?
Yeah, and the ceramics there was very strange. A guy by the name of Bob Schellen, and he was one of these kind of Danish Japanese potter. Anyway,
Okay.
okay, and I think that course was also metals, if I wasn't mistaken. So we were doing metals and ceramics in one semester.
It was just
I
a
think it
3D class, probably.
Yeah, somehow that way. Yeah. And so as I always told the students here, I'm a fake ceramist because I never really basically had a serious ceramics class, So I had a ceramics class, but I wouldn't say it was a serious class. I minored in ceramics when I went to Cranbrook, and I worked with Maya Grotel and Toshiko, and Toshiko was and she became a really dear friend of ours for the whole time.
So did you go directly from Milwaukee to Cranbrook? Or was there any
Yeah,
in
graduated, and then the next year,
You went
next
for-
right, yeah, we went there. My first wife worked, and then I was doing Cranbrook, So, and Cranbrook, of course, was one of those places that is really it was a studio, and you worked in the studio all day, and then one day you went off to your minor. That was basically what the whole thing was about, The critic teacher would come and sort of talk to you once in a while, basically.
So what was your work like then? Was there any inkling of...
Abstract painting, and so was everybody else, it seemed. And I was just throwing pots, or trying to throw pots at that point. Anywhere, that was what I was trying to get.
When did you learn to do slip casting?
When I came out here, actually, yeah, because when I started to do it, I was asking people, like what, and then I come up with these dumb things, you get a buck of this, and then.
So you were just figuring it out.
And then, then finally it dawned on me. There's a place here in Wisconsin that does
Kohler.
slip casting all the time. So, and Ruth, of course, was in the arts, so the daughter, sister, Ruth
okay.
Kohler, yeah.
All right.
And so through her, then I would just go to the factory and work with these people, and then I'd talk to a ceramic engineer and I'd say, look, I'm working on something like this. Oh, get rid of that. Do this. Try this. Okay. So I did. So, and then finally I came up with with the sort of thing, and I think it's somewhere near, because they were saying, don't use this, do this, and so you say, okay, then I guess it's somewhere near what theirs is.
That's great. So the industrial side of your work really came at Kohler and here, but via Kohler and a ceramics factory.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in other words, the other thing is like the platters and plates and everything that are done through the jigger. That I just read things about. In fact, I went to the
before YouTube.
Yes, because I went to one area in the library, UW library, and it says, and I got this book, and it says, tell the boy that there's two ends to a wearboard. So that poor kid who's working in this before child labor laws, that's what this book was about.
Fill in the wearboard.
Yeah. Taking the wearboard to put it where the guy gets done making all this shit,
Oh.
So, yeah, the real potter, tell the boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, wow. So, yeah, I learned it that way. But the other one, the Kohler, was just really... And then Chris Davis, Benavides, who taught at UWM, he had been a student of ours here. And so Chris said, well, I heard your persona non grata up at the... I said, what? What'd I do?
Did you start that whole artist in residence thing?
No,
were you the first one?
No, I didn't do anything.
I mean, did they host artists before that, though? So they have been hosting artists.
They had two guys there. One was from LSU or somewhere down in there. And then they had them use the molds. This is before... Yeah.
They used the Kohler molds, but then made art. Okay.
And then tried to make art out of it, which meant that everything looked like
a urinal.
Yeah. Or a toilet or whatever, It was like...
Right, yeah.
It was
I mean, they made sinks and, yeah.
It was not very good.
Did they take those forms and
then,
cut them up?
Yeah. And then the guy from Ohio came up there that made the figures and things like that. I'll remember his name sometime.
But when you went there,
I just hung out with the workers.
You hung out with the workers, and they had already been hosting artists there. I mean, now they have a program where you apply, like Garrett Grimm was there.
They had just those two guys was the only one that they. But there hadn't been the artist in industry program that Ruth eventually started. No.
Oh, Ruth did. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Because she was then I think anyway, but if it wasn't then, she became the director of the John Kohler Art Center,
Right.
in Sheboygan.
Nice.
Yeah. And
okay, so you were an abstract painter, and you left Cranbrook, but then you did some time in New York, some time in California.
I went to I taught
Hunter?
at a little college in the center of Michigan called Olivet College. So I did that for a year, and then we had enough money. We went to Europe, and of course we were basically leaving America because, as you said, it was in the McCarthy era, So this is 1953, 54.
Okay.
So we left here in 54, in October of 54, and took an Italian superliner to Gibraltar, to Gibraltar, And 6 months later, that superliner was rammed by the Stockholm and sunk off. It was the Andrea Doria.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it was really done totally Italian. It was marvelous. It was a great. But anyway.
So how long were you in Europe?
Well, we looked along the southern coast and then decided, no, we didn't want to be there at all. And so we had some friends in Madrid, so we went up to Madrid, and they said, we're going to Mallorca. And I thought, oh, geez, Mallorca's like Saugatuck. It's been a resort for 100 years. It's going to be expensive. And so we get there, and eventually we rented a house for $13 a month, and it had 6 rooms and 7 terraces, and we went through the whole winter, and then in the spring we went to Paris, and I bought a French car for $1,000. They wanted dollars in those days, so I got a 4CV Citroen. Looked like a VW in those days, not the 2CV that looks like you did that in shop class, So.
Right.
So then we toured Europe from there until the fall.
So a whole summer cruising around in that Citroen, yeah.
Right, staying in youth hostels, and we'd park the car around the corner and then walk in, yeah. And then
you're like 24 years old
yeah,
now,
yeah,
or whatever,
yeah.
Wow.
And so then we went back to Paris, and we got this hotel room, kind of middle class hotel, for $30 a month. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Yeah, those days it was $1, right? And it was a middle class hotel. It was not a flop house, right? Anything like that, Rue Jacob, Hotel du Contadin, and it's called something else now. My first wife would send stuff, and she had gone over and would send me stuff that it had changed its name and stuff like that. Looked even fancier than it was when we were staying there. So we did that, and then we spent the winter there, and so I went to the art school, the Grand Chaumier art school, which Gauguin and some others had gone to.
Nice.
Yeah. And did a lot of figure drawing, just for the hell of it. It was just for a quarter, for 5 hours you could draw, and the models would come. That was the
model fee.
Yeah, the models would come, and then another one would come and pose for a while, and then stuff. So it was always interesting. Yeah, and then Betty, my first wife, had sort of thought she was, when she graduated from McMurray College in Southern Illinois, she had applied to Berkeley art history, and she got accepted. So that fall, then we got a drive-away car and from Detroit and drove it to the West Coast, and she went to Berkeley. We got a place in Berkeley then, so then we lived in Berkeley for 7 years.